Welcome to Buddhism Seeds. Maybe you've gone through silent arguments in your own mind where you kept trying to say the last word, reclaim your rightness, or prove that you weren't wrong. Maybe you've woken up feeling strangely tired, not from lack of sleep, but from a quiet tension that keeps repeating in your heart. That exhaustion doesn't live in your body. It lives in your heart, in the deepest place inside you, where you're still holding on tightly to something that seems small, the need to be understood, to be right, to be acknowledged. But tonight, you don't need to do that anymore. This video isn't just background sound to help you fall asleep. It's a space wide enough for you to let go of all the unsaid words, all the reactions you didn't express, and even the arguments you no longer need to win. Because you don't have to be right to be at peace. Buddhism does not teach us to argue in order to win. Buddhism teaches us to see what is binding us and learn to release it as gently as a leaf falling from a branch. Sometimes silence is not defeat. It's a victory that doesn't need to be recognized. Tonight, you will hear teachings that can melt the ice in your chest where you once held resentment too tightly. Teachings that give you the choice to begin again, to no longer need to be understood, to no longer need to win, just to feel free. And if something in this touches you even softly but deeply, then that's good. It means some part of you is ready to release a battle that no one is still fighting. Stay here, not to keep trying to be right, but to see that you can be at peace without proving anything at all. There are nights when you can't sleep, not because of noise nor physical pain, but because of a sentence left unsaid, a situation you walked away from while your mind remained behind. Wrestling to prove you weren't wrong. It is a kind of quiet restlessness that clings. You replay the dialogue in your head like a broken tape. What if I had said this? What if I had reacted differently? What if they had known the truth? But none of these what ifs bring peace. They only drag you deeper into the whirlpool of needing to be right, fearing to be wrong. The ego, quiet but deeply rooted, begins to whisper in your mind. You can't let them think you're weak. You need to clarify the truth. You can't be disrespected. It sounds like the voice of justice, but if you pause and breathe more slowly, you'll see it isn't truth. It's fear in disguise. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear that others will forget your value. Fear that if you don't defend yourself, you'll disappear. That fear locks you into a role, the one who must be right, who must never be weak, who must win through reasoning. But this is no longer truth. It is ego attachment. Buddhism calls this mana, the identification with a fragile, illusory self. That ego isn't truly you, but it constantly seeks validation. It doesn't crave understanding. It craves recognition. And so you must be right, must win, must be reasonable. But do you truly need that? Or are you just tired of playing that role for too long? The truth is, when you let go of the need to prove you're right, you begin to understand freedom. You are no longer a victim of the past, nor a player in someone else's game of right and wrong. You are the one who quietly steps out of the fight, carrying peace, not victory. And in that moment, sleep will return. Not because everything is resolved, but because you're no longer being pulled into what's unnecessary. In the middle-length discourses, the Buddha taught, One is not honored for surpassing others. One is honored for compassion, patience, and wisdom. It sounds simple, yet it holds a truth most people spend their lives learning. Humans carry a deep urge to be recognized as right. You can win an argument, silence others with logic. But if after winning, your heart still feels uneasy, if it still clenches when you recall it, then that victory was not liberation. It was the burden of ego wrapped in the cloak of reason. Buddhism never teaches us to be silent in order to lose, nor to be weak and endure every situation. What the Buddha teaches is the ability to discern which words arise from wisdom and which are reactions from ego. The ego cleverly disguises itself as intelligence. It makes us believe we're defending the truth, when really we're defending our self-image. And sometimes silence from wisdom is stronger than 1,000 justifications. Next time you feel the urge to speak to clarify and prove you're right, pause. Don't react immediately. Step back, not with your body, but with your mind. Then ask yourself, am I speaking for truth or because my ego is wounded? If I am not recognized as right, do I still see myself as worthy? These questions may seem small, but if answered honestly, they shine light into the darkest corners of ego. Many people spend their whole lives trying to prove themselves right, forgetting that truth needs no defense. It shines naturally in stillness. In Zen teachings, the Buddha spoke of anatta, non-self, one of the deepest foundations of the path to enlightenment. Non-self means there is no fixed I that needs to be defended. The thought you have today may change tomorrow. The view you fiercely hold today may be one you let go of with a smile another day. If that's the case, is it worth suffering to defend what is right in this moment? Letting go doesn't mean abandoning truth. Letting go means releasing the attachment to being the one who is right. Because sometimes right is just a point of view in time. Wisdom is the ability to see that change and still remain grounded. When you understand this, you will see not everyone who stays silent has lost. Not everyone who wins feels at peace. The truly free one is the one who doesn't need to win to feel worthy. In quiet moments of meditation, you may hear inner thoughts rise. They were completely wrong. I should have responded. How could they say that about me? Don't fear these thoughts. Don't try to chase them away. Let them arise, then let them go. Observe them like watching clouds drift across the sky. No chasing, no clinging. Just say quietly to yourself, this is a thought, not the truth. I see it, but I am not it. This is the power of mindfulness, the heart of Buddhist meditation. When you can clearly see your own mind, you are no longer pulled into every emotional wave. There are two kinds of rightness that people often cling to. One, rightness born of wisdom and deep understanding. It clarifies, heals, and connects hearts. Two, rightness born of a wounded ego. It seeks to prove, to win, to punish. The first can be spoken with a gentle, compassionate voice. The second often raises your tone, speeds up your heart, tenses your body. Ask yourself, where is this rightness leading me? After speaking, do I feel lighter or heavier? Sometimes your logic is sound. You cite every detail. You open your heart fully, and still they don't understand. Or they don't want to. And you realize the harder you try, the wider the gap becomes. So letting go of the need to be right is sometimes the only way to preserve the relationship and your peace of mind. Next time someone misunderstands or speaks falsely about you, Instead of reacting immediately, sit down or simply stay still. Place your hand on your chest. Feel your heart beating. Inhale deeply. Exhale slowly. Say to yourself, "They don't understand, but I don't need to prove anything to have peace." When you practice this daily again and again, you will discover something profound. Your mind is no longer easily shaken by misunderstanding or judgment. And that foundation is where true wisdom begins to bloom. We often mistake being proven right as the path to respect. We believe our value depends on the logic of our words, the strength of our evidence. But the truth is, people don't remember how often you were right. They remember how you made them feel. The Buddha once said, "A kind person, even without much learning, is still wise." Kindness does not need to argue. Kindness does not need to assert ego. Kindness is the calm resilience that stands firm without needing validation. When you choose kindness, you give others space to be different from you, and you give yourself a quiet freedom. You don't need to force yourself to maintain an untouchable image. You don't need to speak in every conversation just to win. You don't need others to confirm your worth, because your true value doesn't come from arguments, doesn't come from victory. It comes from knowing when to stop, from the ability to let go when you realize some things, even when right, don't need to be shouted. And that is wisdom, a quiet wisdom deep like a still lake, reflecting all without being disturbed. As ego quiets, your words change. You speak less, but with greater depth. You listen more, not just with ears, but with your heart. Because every word is a seed, a karma. It can purify or it can burden. And when spoken with awareness, your words become a path, not to argument, but to peace. In daily life, no word is truly neutral. Every word you speak either heals or harms. Whether intentional or not, words always carry the energy of the heart. Language is not just sound from the mouth. It is the vibrational frequency of your inner state being transmitted. Your mood, your presence, your level of awareness. When your mind is unsettled, even soft words can cut like a blade. When your mind is at peace, even simple words become guiding lights for others. Someone once asked a Zen master, "Master, I only said a few words. Why was the other person so hurt?" The master smiled and replied, "Because you did not see your mind when you spoke." Often the wound does not come from the content of the words, but from the emotional vibrations beneath them. Anger, arrogance, the desire to win, or just ego trying to prove something. And that is the beginning of verbal karma. Many people think karma is only created by big actions, hitting someone, stealing, telling major lies. But in Buddhism, karma is created through 3 doors: body, speech, mind. Of these, speech karma is the easiest to commit because words leave faster than thoughts, and once spoken, they cannot be taken back. The Buddha taught, "Like one who throws dust into the wind, the dust will blow back on the thrower." Unmindful speech is the same. It returns and strikes your own heart, sometimes as guilt, sometimes as a broken relationship, sometimes as roughness in your very breath. Modern psychology also says when hurt people are not good at feeling, they are good at reacting. They speak to protect themselves, to hide their fear of not being heard or seen. And every time you speak from anger, you are repeating an old wound, Each sentence is a negative seed planted in the heart. One day, when someone uses that same energy on you, you will feel pain, not because of their words, but because the karma has ripened. So see your own mind clearly before speaking. Practice right speech, which means speaking from compassion, from awareness, not to win, but to transform. Next time, before saying something in anger, ask yourself, what am I speaking for? What karma am I creating for myself? Because speech, when born of mindfulness, is no longer a sharp knife, but a healing medicine. In the Noble Eightfold Path, the Buddha taught about right speech not as a rigid moral rule, but as a doorway to transform karma. Speaking rightly is not just about speaking truth. It's about speaking with the right approach, the right heart, the right timing, and the right purpose. The four elements of right speech serve as a compass to turn words into medicine, rather than invisible arrows of harm. 1. Truthful speech, sakavaka. Do not distort the truth. Do not speak just to please others. Do not fabricate what you do not know. Truth does not mean saying everything. Truth does not mean lacking compassion. Truth must align with reality, not be bent by emotion or the desire to win. 2. Kind speech, metavaka. A sentence may be true, but if it lacks kindness, it cuts like a sharp knife. The Buddha taught compassion must come before wisdom. Even when saying hard truths, let kindness lead, do not let anger slip in. 3. Beneficial speech, athavaka. Valuable words are those that help the other grow open their heart and understand themselves, not just prove you're right or make them feel small. 4. Timely speech, kalavaka. Some things are true, but if said at the wrong time, they destroy. Many speak the truth too early before the other is ready to listen. Others speak too late when the relationship is beyond repair. Right speech is not just content, it's the art of timing. Before you speak, pause for a moment. Breathe in deeply, exhale slowly. Then ask, is this truly necessary? Will it hurt anyone? Will I feel lighter after speaking, or am I just releasing anger? If the answer is unclear, stay silent. Because timely silence is not weakness, it is the highest expression of wisdom. A Zen master once said, before you speak, let your words pass through 3 gates. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it spoken with kindness? These gates do not block speech, they filter karma before it is made. You speak thousands of sentences a day to family co-workers or yourself. But it is often the careless words that leave the deepest marks. A kind word can be remembered for a lifetime. A harsh word can close a heart forever. An unmindful sentence can destroy a relationship. But a well-timed, aware sentence can reconnect what once seemed beyond repair. Mindful speech is meditation in breath and moments in words. So speak with a calm heart. And if you're not ready, let silence be your refuge of compassion. We often think meditation happens when sitting still on a cushion in a quiet room with eyes half closed and a gentle breath. But truly, meditation exists in every word you speak, in how you listen to yourself and others. Before speaking, pause. Listen to your mind. Is this coming from wisdom or ego? While speaking, slow down. Observe the sound and energy behind your words. After speaking, feel. If your heart feels lighter, your words came from wisdom. If your heart feels heavy, you've just planted a seed of ego in the soil of your mind. This is not technique, it is insight, the core of Buddhist meditation. Modern psychology shows most people speak to be acknowledged, to preserve self-image, to affirm worth. But the Buddha taught the opposite: speak, not to control others, but to transform yourself. When you speak, to connect, your words become warm and gentle. When you speak to prove, your words carry pressure both for the listener and yourself. You'll feel your body tense, your breath shallow, and the energy sharp around you. It's not sound that causes pain, but the intention behind the sound. A sentence can open a door of understanding or shut down a relationship. One meditation student once asked his teacher, "Master, I keep the precepts and harm no one. Why do I still face so much conflict?" The teacher asked, "Do you remember every word you said today?" The student was silent. "You've sown seeds without knowing what you sowed." The teacher smiled. Each word is a karmic seed. Some sprout immediately. Some sleep deep, then bloom on the day your heart is most vulnerable. And sometimes what wounds you isn't others' words, but the echo of your own unmindful speech. From now on, every time you're about to speak, treat it as a small meditation practice. Before speaking, inhale, exhale. While speaking, slow, clear, gentle. After speaking, listen to your body and heart. If you feel peace, you are planting merit. If you feel unrest, don't blame yourself. The moment you notice, you begin to transform. You don't need to be perfect. Just be fully present when the words are spoken. Just 1 second of pause can prevent a whole chain of karma. The Buddha once said, "A person who speaks gently has a gentle heart." You don't need many scriptures. You don't need elaborate rituals. Just mindfulness in speech, and you are meditating in daily life. Speak as if your words will be engraved on your heart, because truly they will be. And over time, you'll notice people no longer hurt you with their words, because you have stopped hurting yourself with your own. And finally, when you speak with enough mindfulness, you'll discover something deeper. Sometimes not speaking is the deepest form of speech. Because when the heart is still enough, you don't need to prove. When understanding is deep enough, you don't need to explain. When love is strong enough, you don't need to justify. Speech is a means to purify karma, but timely silence is the boundary that protects the heart. It is not avoidance, it is freedom. There are moments when you feel an urge to say something, a reaction, a comment, or just a sentence to protect a cracking ego. Emotions rise, the mind spirals, and words stand ready like arrows. But if in that very moment you could pause even briefly, you would see this. Not everything you think needs to be said. Speaking up does not always make you stronger. Silence is not avoidance. Silence is not defeat. Silence, when timely, is the expression of mature wisdom. And it is also how you build an invisible fence to protect your healing inner world. Modern psychology speaks of the impulse response. When hurt people often react with speech before they even feel what's happening inside. You are misunderstood. You want to respond. You feel judged. You want to defend. You see something wrong. You want to correct it. But words spoken from unhealed pain, even if logically sound, do not bring peace. They may even leave you feeling more unsettled afterward. Because at that moment you weren't speaking to connect, you were speaking to protect. And once words are released like arrows shot, they cannot be retrieved. You can apologize, you can explain, but the energy has already left you, and its impact does not disappear. Many think meditation is about sitting quietly, eyes closed, mind calm. But meditation can begin right in the marketplace, in the instant you are about to react and choose to pause. Every time you pause before reacting, every time you choose silence over argument, you are practicing Dharma in the real world, where noise and collisions are constant. Silence in meditation does not mean never speaking. It means not letting the mind be led by haste, anger, or pride. That silence is not to escape, but to return inward to see your mind clearly. When you can sit quietly, even while your thoughts scream, "I must say something," you have touched true mindfulness. When you know not all speech is helpful, not all responses are necessary, then you are no longer a victim of reactivity. Because what matters is not the words themselves, but the state of mind that gives birth to them. If you feel inner turmoil, if you feel a lump in your throat, that is a sign you need silence, not to hide, but to listen inward. And that is when wisdom speaks through stillness. No need to win. No need to prove anything. Just protecting inner peace is the most noble act for yourself and this world. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha taught clearly and wisely. The wise do not speak words that are untimely, untrue, harsh, or unbeneficial. That one sentence is enough to reflect on how we use speech in daily life. Because sometimes being right is not enough. For speech to become wisdom, it must also be timely, kind-hearted, and skillful. If those elements are missing, then silence is the wisest and most compassionate choice. Think back. How many times have you said something in anger and regretted it? How many times have you wished you'd stayed silent? How many times have you hurt someone not with actions, but with words? No one among us can say never. That's why timely silence is not just a communication skill, but a moral boundary, a conscious line that the spiritually mature protect. Because when you pause at the right moment, you not only avoid creating more karma, you also preserve something priceless, your inner clarity. There are times you feel compelled to speak, to correct, to defend, to assert something. But if in that moment you can pause for a few seconds, you may see yourself more clearly. Does this really need to be said? Is what I'm about to say coming from peace or from an unhealed wound? If I speak, what will be created and what will be lost? Just one pause, and wisdom has a chance to enter. And when wisdom is present, your words, if still necessary, will heal, not harm. In modern psychology, such impulsive speech is called a reflex. When emotions are triggered, words are often the first thing to burst out. Anger speak, misunderstood speak, injustice speak, as if silence means losing something vital. But speech from an unlit heart, no matter how reasonable, brings no true peace. Because in that moment, it is not wisdom speaking, it is the instinct to defend, and speech born from instinct is always an arrow. Even if unintentional, the energy behind it still activates karmic ripples. Meditation is not just sitting still, breathing slowly, or closing your eyes. Meditation is knowing when to hold your tongue. Meditation is choosing not to react, to observe your mind. Meditation is recognizing pain within and not letting that pain turn into speech. Every time you stay silent when you could speak, you keep the precept of right speech, one of the hardest in practice. There's a common misconception. Those who talk more argue better, or silence others are the winners. But the truth is, the true victor is the one who speaks nothing, yet keeps their heart pure. The spiritually mature do not speak to defend, justify, or prove worth. They know worth is not in claiming to be right, but in choosing not to react. And with each silence they choose, they preserve the most precious thing, a heart undisturbed. Next time you want to say something, try this. 1. Pause for 3 seconds. 2. Inhale, exhale deeply. 3. Ask yourself, does this need to be said? Will this help or just satisfy my ego? After I speak, will I feel lighter or heavier? If after these 3 questions you still feel it's necessary, then speak with stillness, with kindness, with breath. But if your mind still feels cloudy, then silence is your light. Speech is a sharp tool. It can build or destroy. But what gives words their worth is not length, not logic, but the mind state from which they arise. Use words to connect, not to punish. Let timely silence be a sign of ripened wisdom, not the retreat of weakness. And if someday you see someone choosing silence in a noisy argument, don't assume they are weak. They may be protecting their most sacred space, a mind no longer wishing to create karma. And then when you have learned to pause, to be silent, to turn inward, to guard your peace, you will also see something else. Some things don't need a reaction, but still feel unsettled inside. You didn't speak, but inside, a voice keeps repeating the past. That is memory unhealed. And if you don't observe it closely, it will become the second arrow, hurting not from what happened, but from your mind, replaying it over and over. In life, no one escapes pain. A cold remark, a sudden departure, an irreversible loss. These things strike unexpectedly, like arrows piercing the heart. You hurt and you have every right to. But in the Buddha's teachings, that pain is only the first arrow. The arrow comes from circumstances from the outside world, and you cannot always prevent it. However, what prolongs your suffering is not that first arrow, but the second one. It is the story you tell yourself over and over again, day after day. You don't just remember, you relive. You replay every detail, every word, every image, as if it were happening all over again. And you don't do it once, you do it hundreds of times. That is the more dangerous arrow. Modern neuroscience now confirms what the Buddha saw over 2,500 years ago. The brain does not clearly distinguish between what is truly happening and what is vividly recalled, which means if you recall a painful memory deeply enough, your body reacts as if it is really happening. Your heart beats faster. Your breath shortens. Your whole body tenses, and your mind gets pulled back into that dark place where you once fell. You think you are just remembering, but in reality you are re-experiencing. Someone divorced years ago, but still tells the story with teary eyes. Someone betrayed in their youth still tortures themselves with, "I should have." Someone carries a resentment for a lifetime as if forgetting would erase its existence. But the truth is, letting go does not mean forgetting. Letting go means not letting the past continue to control the present. Letting go means no longer allowing that pain to appear every night in your dreams, every morning in your mind. You don't need to hold on to the wound to prove it happened. It happened. You lived through it. And now you have the right to live without being pulled back. You can't change what happened, but you can choose not to replay it in your head anymore. You can place your hand on your chest, take a deep breath, and say to yourself, "That was the past. I don't need to carry it anymore." Pain is real, but continued suffering is a choice. From the moment you see this clearly, you begin to pull the arrow out of your own heart. And sometimes, just one night of deep sleep without being dragged back into old stories is already a major step toward healing. In meditation, you don't have to force yourself to forget the past. You simply look at it like watching a cloud pass across the sky. No need to chase it away. No need to cling to it. No need to ask why it appeared. Just know, a memory is rising. When you are mindful enough to just see it without reacting, that memory loses its power. It is no longer an arrow in your heart, but a ripple across the lake of your mind. You begin to see that a memory is not you. It is simply a stream of information your brain retrieves, then dissolves like all other phenomena in life. When a painful memory resurfaces, pause for a moment. No need to resist, no need to analyze, just place your hand on your chest. Breathe in deeply. Exhale slowly. Whisper, "This is the past. I don't need to relive it." At first, this may seem meaningless, but with practice you will realize each time you pause like this, the memory weakens. Your mind begins to learn how to release the memory without denying it. You still remember, but it no longer hurts. You still see it, but you are not swept away. Like someone standing on the bank watching the river flow without needing to jump in. The Buddha taught, all conditioned things are impermanent. Impermanence is not just about the body, material things, or time. It is also the nature of emotions, memories, and pain. What you went through, no matter how painful, has already passed. But if you keep holding it as if it is still happening, you are denying the truth of impermanence. What you call "I am hurting" is actually the mind clinging to a shadow of the past. And when you see that clearly, you can smile gently. That happened, but I don't need to carry it anymore. That simple sentence is a doorway to inner freedom. Healing does not mean erasing memories. Healing is when old memories no longer make you shrink. It is when you can remember and still feel at peace. It is when you understand everything that arises, fades. You cannot control which clouds drift across the sky, but you can learn to watch them pass without being swept away. And that is the essence of meditation, the way you begin to heal yourself through stillness. You don't need to punish yourself for having been hurt. You don't need to keep the memory as proof. I was in pain. I was betrayed. I was not chosen. No one denies what you went through. But you don't need to carry that pain every day as if it were a life sentence. You deserve a lighter heart, not because you force yourself to forget, but because you finally see clearly, I survived, and I have the right to move on. We often think compassion is something we offer to others, but maybe what you need most right now is to allow yourself to heal. Not everyone knows how to hold themselves in their weakest moments. And sometimes forgiving yourself is the hardest lesson of all. Someone once told me, I can't forget because I need to remember so I don't repeat it. I understand. But I also want to ask you this. Are you remembering to learn or reliving to suffer? Because there is a very fine line. If you look back with understanding, the memory becomes a lesson. But if you look back with old emotion, it remains an arrow in your heart once again. You made it through that day, through that event, through that moment you thought you couldn't survive. So what remains now? Only the story you continue to replay in your mind. A film on repeat. A memory looping, not letting you forget, but also never letting you rest. At some point, you must ask yourself, do I want to keep living or keep reliving? And if you are ready, no denial, no erasing. Just set it down, gently, quietly, not because you want to escape, but because you have looked deeply enough, and you know holding it longer helps no one. That is the moment the second arrow falls out of your heart. That is when true healing begins, not through forgetting, but through understanding. And understanding always arrives in stillness, where you no longer fight the memory, you just let it pass, like a cloud in the sky, once present, but no longer here. When you release that memory, you will feel something very light, very subtle, yet deeply transformative stillness. Not the silence in your ears, but the stillness inside, where you no longer replay old stories, no longer hold conversations with the past, no longer let memory lead the way. In that stillness, the ego begins to fade. And you are no longer the wounded one, you are the one who is living. There are things that need no name, yet you feel them in every reaction, every desire, every word left unsaid. One of those things is the ego. You can't point to it and say, "This is my ego," but you can feel it clearly. When you're criticized and instantly want to defend. When someone fails to acknowledge you and you feel the urge to prove yourself. When an idea is rejected and it feels like you yourself were rejected. All of these waves are not you. They are movements of the ego. In Buddhist teachings, the ego or self-attachment is not your true self. It is an illusion constructed from countless psychological reactions, attachment patterns, and identification with self-image. We often think, "I am a successful person. I am someone who has been hurt. I am someone on a spiritual path." All of those are roles. It's not wrong to have roles. The problem begins when you forget you're playing a role and start believing it is your true self. The ego grows through repeated reactions to praise and blame, gain and loss, winning and losing. And strangely enough, something that causes so much suffering has no clear form. It doesn't live anywhere specific, yet seeps into every action, motive, and expectation you place on yourself and others. If you've ever meditated, you'll understand this. All you need to do is sit still and breathe, and the subtlest movements of the mind will arise. You may feel the urge to adjust your posture, not because of pain, but because you worry how you look. You may find yourself hoping someone sees how peaceful you are. You may catch your mind thinking, "I am more awake than those who don't practice." That is not a fault. It is simply how the ego operates. But if you can see it, just see it without chasing it or trying to eliminate it, then you are already practicing insight. You don't need to forcefully destroy the ego, because that effort itself may come from the very ego trying to become better. You only need to observe it like watching a child playing. Notice it. Smile. Don't react. Pure awareness without clinging is the light that gradually dissolves the fog of ego. And when the ego recedes, something deeper begins to reveal itself. Beneath every need to prove, every defensive reflex, every scramble over right and wrong, there is always a part of you that does not waver. That part is not hurt by being misunderstood, does not need to be validated, does not need a name. In Zen, it is called the true mind, pure awareness. It does not belong to, "I am enlightened," "I am a good practitioner," or any self-image you construct. True mind is simply deep presence, still clear and luminous when ego is no longer standing in the way. You don't need to rush to attain it. Just each day, when a reaction arises, pause, look inward, and gently ask, "Who is reacting right now?" That question doesn't need an answer. Just hold it in your heart like a mirror, and day by day you will notice the ego fades, awareness shines, and you begin to feel free from within. Someone may sit very still, unmoving, but inside they want others to see that they are sitting still. Someone may speak gently with kind eyes, but inwardly they are comparing. "I seem more mindful than them." That's not meditation, and it isn't stillness. Stillness isn't a physical posture. It's the state where the mind no longer performs, no longer tries to show anything, no longer defends, no longer plays a role. It simply is present, true, effortless. In psychology, the ego is not the enemy. It was created to protect you, to help you feel loved, seen, accepted. As a child, you learned to speak, behave, and express to please others. And over time, you began to believe, this is me. But in truth, that is just a shell. The more roles you take on, the further you drift from your true self. And the ego, once formed to help you survive, now exhausts you. Psychology says the ego lives off three things: comparison, control, proving. Buddhism offers a path out. Let go of those three, and you begin to see the light of stillness. You don't need to enter the forest. You don't need to go on retreat. You just need to sit still, do nothing, and observe the mind. Practice it daily, little by little. When criticized, don't react immediately. Breathe and ask, which part of me feels touched? When praised, notice if something is inflating inside. While speaking, pause to listen instead of seeking to be right. In these simple moments, you begin to see there is a space between the real me and the ego at play. And that space is where meditation begins to blossom. The Buddha taught the 5 aggregates are all empty. You don't need to destroy the ego, because truly it never existed as a solid thing. It is just a string of reactions, habits, imaginations, and you don't need to fight it. You simply stop feeding it with old responses. Stop identifying, stop clinging, stop proving, and then it fades like mist in sunlight. There is nothing to destroy. No one needs to be more enlightened. Just this, nothing left to cling to. And the mind begins to be free. The ego is not the enemy. It doesn't need to be defeated or erased. It only needs to be seen with a kind, gentle, and deeply understanding gaze. When you notice yourself still wanting praise, still needing to prove, still comparing, don't blame yourself. Don't strain to be better. All of that is just old conditioning, not your essence. Just breathe. Just smile. Let every emotion pass like clouds drifting across the sky. That is compassion for yourself. And compassion is the doorway to true freedom. The ego always urges you to become someone, a better person, a stronger being, a deeper soul. But when you are truly awake, you will see, I don't need to be anything. Just be present, aware, still, and in that state of not wanting to become you, begin to touch a very different kind of joy light. Deep, independent. That is unconditional happiness. The foundation of mindfulness, the space where your true nature comes alive. When you are still enough to see the ego clearly, you will begin to notice something that was often hidden before: unresolved emotions. One of the strongest, most common, and most dangerous of these is anger. You may think you're angry because others are wrong because they hurt you. But the truth is, anger is helplessness in disguise. It is a signal not to explode, but to return and listen within. Anger is a very real emotion. It can arrive as suddenly as lightning, a careless word, a condescending look, a thoughtless action, and you feel your heart sting your face, heat up your mind, thrown off balance. Even if you're usually calm, spiritually aware, or have meditated before, anger can still rise like an uninvited guest. But what causes suffering is not just the anger itself. It's the helplessness you feel when you can't control it. Many believe they are angry because someone else did something wrong, because they were thoughtless, broke a promise, or didn't respect them. But if you pause and look deeply, you'll see anger doesn't arise from strength, but from an unhealed wound. In psychology, anger is often called a masking emotion for more vulnerable feelings underneath, like sadness, fear of abandonment, insecurity, or loss of control. A child who isn't heard will scream, break things, cry, because they don't yet know how to express in words. Adults at times do the same. We don't want to be seen as weak, so we react with anger to protect our image, to not lose, to avoid getting hurt again. In Buddhism, anger is called ill will, Sanskrit dvesha, or Pali dosa, one of the three poisons: greed, hatred, delusion, that fuel the cycle of suffering. But anger isn't just shouting or rage. It can be very subtle, the bitterness hidden in silence. The cold stare when someone disappoints you. The quiet withdrawal used to punish someone with distance. And most importantly, anger creates karma. It doesn't just hurt others, it robs you of peace, clarity, and creates new cycles of suffering. Many misunderstand spiritual practice as the suppression of emotions. But that's not what the Buddha taught. He didn't say to swallow your anger and pretend to be calm while burning inside. He taught us to see anger clearly, to understand it, and to transform it. Anger is not wrong. Reaction is natural, but unconscious reaction leaves consequences. Many can't let go of anger not because the event was too big, but because they're waiting for the other person to change, to apologize, or to admit fault. They place their peace in someone else's hands. But once you see what your anger really is, you no longer need anyone else to change, because you have come back to yourself. Anger may come from an old wound being touched, a feeling of being disrespected, a situation beyond your control. When you dare to look into those roots, anger begins to dissolve. Here is a simple yet powerful practice. Next time you feel anger rising, try this. 1. Pause. Really pause. Say nothing more. Don't text. Don't make any decisions. In a state of anger, every word becomes a weapon. 2. Breathe slowly. Return to your breath. Inhale deeply. Exhale slowly. This helps you step out of the reactive loop. 3. Name the true emotion. Say silently to yourself, I feel abandoned. I feel disappointed. I feel powerless. When you name the core feeling, the anger begins to lose its grip. 4. Don't rush to conclusions. When your mind is still stormy, don't label others as bad, wrong, or terrible. These labels often come from a wounded mind, not from wisdom. Every moment of anger is an opportunity to understand yourself more deeply. Every time you pause is a step toward inner maturity. And each time you choose peace over victory, you release yourself from old karma. Remember, you are not an angry person. You are someone learning to understand an inner pain. And once you see it, you have already begun to be free. If you need to breathe now, not to fix anything, just to see clearly you are still here and you can still choose peace over reaction. And that is true inner power. One afternoon, a father and his son argued. The boy spoke disrespectfully and stormed off. The father stood still, silent. He didn't yell, didn't hit, didn't scold, but inside rage flared. His eyes burned with fury. His lips trembled as he held back. The child saw that look and grew scared. He shrank, hiding in his room. The father's anger didn't explode outward, but it left a silent wound in the child's heart. Later, when asked, "Why were you angry?" the father answered, "Because he was disrespectful." But when asked again, "Why were you hurt?" he cried, "Because I thought he didn't need me anymore." That was the moment of transformation. When he moved past the anger, he touched the deeper fear of being abandoned, forgotten, no longer needed. Beneath anger is unspoken pain. Beneath pain is the longing to be loved and understood. In the Satipatthana Sutta, the foundations of mindfulness, the Buddha taught, observe the body in the body, feelings in the feelings, mind in the mind. This means observe emotion as it arises without judgment or action. See it like a cloud passing across the sky, real, but not you. Mindfulness doesn't make you emotionless. It makes you aware of your emotions and able to respond with compassion instead of instinct. You may be angry and that's okay. But there is a world of difference between mindful anger and anger that consumes you. Don't hate yourself for still being angry, but don't use "everyone gets angry" as an excuse to let it fester forever. See anger like a child crying. It doesn't know how to speak, doesn't know how to explain, so it screams to be heard. You wouldn't hit that child, but you wouldn't let it drive the car either. You simply hold it, listen, and teach it to grow. Likewise, when anger rises, pause. Take a deep breath. Feel the heat in your chest. And ask yourself, what inside me is really hurting? No need to find causes out there. Just be honest with the feeling in here. Anger, if acted on, creates karma. Through words, behavior, or poor decisions, all of it leaves marks. But anger, if seen clearly with mindfulness, can dissolve without erupting. The difference lies in one moment of pause. One mindful breath can save a harsh word. One inner look can change years of karmic patterns. And then you realize anger may not come because the other person was so wrong, but because you didn't see how much you were hurting. Anger is just a wave on the surface of the oceanic mind. If you focus only on the wave, you'll be swept away. But if you dive deeper, you'll see underneath is stillness. When you understand that anger is the voice of pain, you stop judging yourself or others for feeling it. You begin to see each of us carries an unheard child inside. Forgiveness doesn't start with, "I forget what happened." It starts with, "I understand why it happened." Once you understand, letting go becomes natural. You don't need someone to apologize for you to be at peace. You let go of anger not because they deserve it, but because you no longer want to imprison yourself in pain. When you pause, breathe, and look deeply into your anger, you will see behind that fire is a heart simply longing to be loved. And when you see that the anger dissolves, love returns, and your heart is free. One mindful breath can save a word. One moment of insight can save a life. There is one thing many people misunderstand. They think forgiveness is a gift for someone else, that you should only forgive when the other person has changed, apologized, or shown remorse. But true forgiveness has nothing to do with them. It's an act you do for yourself to release your heart from the shackles of resentment. When you hold tightly to a wound in your heart, it may feel like you're punishing the one who caused it. But in truth, you're locking yourself inside the suffocating room of memory. Each time you recall the event, the past revives itself in your present. And the one who is hurt again and again is you. Forgiveness doesn't mean denying the wrong. It's not agreement. It's a stopping. Stopping the old pain from continuing to shape your current life. When you say, "I won't carry this anymore," you're not letting them win. You're winning your freedom. The Buddha taught that the root of all suffering is greed, hatred, and delusion. Among these, hatred, anger, and resentment is the slow-burning fire that scorches the heart the longest. It doesn't only explode in rage, but also hides in repetitive thoughts, cold glances, and quiet bitterness that refuses to let go. You may not shout or retaliate, but if your heart still holds someone in a bitter memory, karma is still forming. Each time you recall the past, you plant another seed of unrest. Each time you retell the story, you sharpen the blade of resentment. The other person may be asleep joyful or have long forgotten you. But if you carry that memory with heavy emotion, you remain a prisoner of the past. Letting go doesn't mean erasing memory. You can't forget what hurt you, but you can stop letting it rule your mind. You can remember with peace without bitterness, guilt, or longing for revenge. That is the wisdom of letting go. Modern science agrees. Psychological studies show people who hold on to grudges have stress levels, blood pressure, and stress hormones double those of others. Prolonged resentment disrupts sleep, weakens immunity, and leads to emotional exhaustion. Many live their whole lives in low-grade tension because of something that happened years ago. They remember every word, every gesture, as if it's happening now. But they don't realize they are allowing the past to hurt them again. Some say, "I can't forgive because that means they win." Others say, "If I forgive, I accept the wrong." That is the subtle trap of ego. The ego loves the victim role because it makes us feel righteous, pitiful, justified in our suffering. but you don't have to live that script forever. Forgiveness isn't excusing wrong behavior. It's freeing your mind from being tethered to it. It's not letting someone else off the hook. It's unhooking yourself from the chain. When you forgive, you say to yourself, I choose peace over being right. I choose freedom over resentment. And that's not weakness. That is inner strength. The strength of someone who understands happiness doesn't come from winning, but from having nothing left to win. Forgiveness doesn't happen in a day. It's a slow journey, a gradual undoing, a breath-by-breath release. Each time you remember and choose not to react the old way, you take one step closer to freedom. Each time you choose to understand instead of blame, your heart becomes lighter, and one day you may look back and realize that pain once broke you, but it also taught you to be more tender, more spacious, more letting go. Then you no longer say, I forgive them, but simply smile and whisper, there's nothing left to forgive, only something that needed to be understood. And in that moment, your heart is truly free. There was once a grieving mother who came to a Zen master holding deep resentment for years. No one could convince her to forgive. No words could ease the heavy wound in her heart, the death of her son, and the one responsible for it. The Zen master didn't urge her to let go. He didn't preach Dharma. He simply asked, "Is it peace you seek?" She broke down and nodded. He nodded gently, as if affirming something already present. Then forgive not for them, but because your heart is crying out for rest. Months later, she returned, her face no longer clouded like before. She said in a soft breath, I haven't forgotten what happened, but for the first time in years, I can breathe without my chest tightening. That was the beginning of liberation. Not because the other changed, but because she finally let go. Many believe forgiveness means forgetting, accepting, or being weak. But in truth, it is the bold act of someone who refuses to keep themselves imprisoned in a dead past. The Buddha taught, greed, hatred, and delusion are the roots of suffering. And hatred, resentment, isn't just screaming. It can be silent, but lingers like a cold wind slicing through the heart. Forgiveness doesn't begin with logic. It begins with being honest about how you feel. You can start with these 4 steps. 1. Name the emotion. Don't deny it. Don't pretend you're past it. Say what's real. I'm hurt. I'm angry. I'm in pain. 2. Observe without judgment. Let the pain rise. Don't force it away. Don't blame anyone, not even yourself. 3. Ask deeply. How long do I want this to affect me? Do I want to be free? If you can't answer yet, breathe deeply and allow yourself to not be ready but to begin. 4. Repeat the intention. I choose peace over pain. I won't carry this anymore. Whisper this before sleep, during meditation, when emotion arises, like a red thread guiding you back to clarity. In meditation, you are not taught to forget. You are invited to see the impermanence of all things. What happened has passed. That person is no longer who they were, and you are no longer who you were then. If you keep clinging to memory, you don't live in the present. You live beside a fading shadow. It's an unfair contract the past has left, but you remain behind. Each time you replay the story, you feed the fire of hatred. Each time you retell it, you fertilize the roots of pain. And when you keep waiting for an apology, punishment, or recognition, you hand your peace to someone else. In Buddhism, freedom doesn't come from others changing. It comes from your ability to stop. The Buddha said, "Hatred is never appeased by hatred. Only by love is hatred overcome." Love here isn't for them first. It's for you. Love is seeing you've hurt long enough and choosing to be gentle instead. No one deserves to be imprisoned forever in a dark memory. No one should let someone who has left still live inside them daily, not in presence, but through resentment. Imagine you're holding a rope and on the other end is the one who hurt you. The tighter you grip, the more your hand aches. But if you let go, you don't drop them. You release yourself. Compassion sometimes isn't about loving someone else. It's letting go of what hurts you, even if no apology is ever spoken. You don't have to force forgiveness. You don't have to pretend you're healed. And you certainly don't need to seem nobler than you feel. Forgiveness isn't denying the wound. It's looking directly at it, touching it, and then putting it down. You don't forgive because they deserve it. You forgive because you don't want to imprison yourself another day in a past that no longer lives. You don't need to announce it to anyone. Just one quiet whisper in your heart. I choose peace over anger. I choose lightness instead of carrying this weight forever. I will no longer hold this. Forgiveness isn't a moral act. It's not a duty. It's simply the most mindful thing you can do for yourself. When you no longer crave to win, to be validated, to seek justice, you will notice something quietly appears. A space opens inside you where winds can pass through, but nothing remains to hurt you anymore. That is freedom. And sometimes it begins with a sigh and a soft letting go in silence. When you understand forgiveness deeply, you also see this. Not every wound needs analyzing, explaining, or digging to be healed. Some things just need to be released. You don't need to find every cause. You don't need to know why it happened. You only need to look at the present and say, I don't want to hold this inside me anymore. And that is the deepest healing of all healing, by letting go. We live in an era where every pain is laid on the operating table of the mind. Every negative emotion, every inner wound is dissected and traced back to its roots. Why am I sad? Why am I angry? Why can't I move on? But not every pain needs to be analyzed. Not every emotion needs to be unraveled, named, explained before it can be let go. Some sorrows need no reason. They just need to be breathed with, quietly observed and gently released, like a passing cloud in the vast sky. No need to grasp. no need to understand. We've grown used to working on ourselves by thinking hard. But in truth, the more you think, the more you get stuck. The more you analyze, the more you polish the wound. The more you try to understand, the deeper you sink into the old story. And then you think you're healing when in fact, you're reliving the pain every day, just in a more insightful, sharper, more painful version. In the teaching of the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha made it clear: suffering is a truth, but there is a path that leads to the end of suffering. He didn't deny pain, but he also didn't encourage us to cling to it as an identity. Pain happens, but if you keep retelling it, attaching it to the self, analyzing it to exhaustion, you're the one prolonging the suffering. Modern psychology agrees. When people fall into over-analysis without actual emotional transformation, it's a subtle form of avoidance. Instead of feeling, you think. Instead of listening inward, you construct outward explanations. Instead of sitting with sadness, you try to understand it, to control it. But sadness isn't meant to be controlled. It just needs to be breathed with and moved through. That's why in meditation you don't need to understand anything. You just need to be present. When memories arise, you see them. When emotions swell, you breathe. No reaction, no analysis, no new stories. And strangely, it's in that very not doing that the mind begins to heal itself. In Buddhist teachings, letting go does not mean denial escape or forced forgetting. Letting go means you stop holding on. You stop clinging to what has already passed. You no longer drag it back, lay it on the table of reason, and attempt to decode it. You don't need to understand everything to be at peace. You just need to allow yourself to stop holding it. If something is weighing heavy on your heart, don't rush to explain it. Try simplifying everything. Sit down. Breathe in, breathe out. Watch the emotion like a breeze passing through. No judgment, no naming. And whisper gently within, I don't need to understand everything to feel lighter. Freedom doesn't begin in analytical wisdom, but in mindful silence. In that moment, you choose not to do anything more with your sorrow. Just breathe with it and let it pass. You don't need to fix emotions to meditate. You don't need to push pain away to be at peace. Meditation doesn't come to cut off any emotion. It simply teaches you to sit and see, like sitting beside a flowing river. You don't need to jump in and clean the water. You don't need to build a dam to stop the flow. You just sit, observe, and let the river do what it always does, flow. Emotions are the same. When sadness, anger, or insecurity arises, you don't need to label it. You don't need to call it bad, wrong, or shouldn't be here. You just breathe and see. Just clearly see it's here without identifying with it. I see anger, not I am an angry person. I feel sad, not I am weak. In that moment, you separate yourself from the emotion. You don't let it define you. You don't let the pain become your identity. If you're feeling something heavy inside, try this. No reaction, no analysis, no rushing for advice. Just place your hand gently on your chest. Take a deep breath in and slowly exhale. Then in silence, whisper to yourself, "Hello there, this feeling. I'm not fighting you. I'm not trying to push you away. But I'm not keeping you forever either. Stay as long as you need, but you'll pass when it's time." And that is where healing begins. Not in advice, not in analysis, but in the space you create for emotion to exist without resistance. One of the deeper reasons we cling to pain is because we believe it is me. We often say, "I'm someone who gets hurt easily. I'm sensitive. I'm someone who can't let go." But all of that is just repeated thought, not your nature. The Buddha taught whatever is born will pass away. Whatever comes will go. Nothing is mine or me or myself. Emotions, no matter how strong, are impermanent phenomena. They may pass through your mind like clouds, but they are not the sky. You don't need to resist what's happening. You don't need to identify with any emotion. You just need to be aware and release. No rush, no pressure, no need to be better immediately. Just sit with yourself gently each day. And in that gentleness, the mind begins to open, to steady, to free itself. Because you are no longer the one clinging to pain. You are the one seeing the pain and letting it pass. A young monk once crossed a stream and saw a large rock blocking the flow. Thinking he needed to help the water, he bent down and pushed hard. But the more he pushed, the more the water splashed, creating chaos. His teacher smiled from behind and gently said, "You don't need to move the rock. Just sit and let the water find its way." The young monk didn't understand, but obeyed. As he sat and observed, doing nothing, the water began to shift on its own, flowing around the rock, gentle and clear. We are often like that with our pain. When unpleasant emotions, old memories, or quiet wounds arise, our first response is, "I must fix this." We try to understand, analyze, remove. But that struggle often makes the inner stream more turbulent. In the middle-length discourses, the Buddha taught something profoundly simple. When the mind no longer tries to become anything, it is at peace. You don't need to become the one who's fully healed. You don't need to be the one who's already peaceful. You don't need to prove that you've moved on. You just need to stop. Stop holding. Stop analyzing. Stop resisting. Because sometimes the effort to heal is what keeps the pain alive. The more you search for the root, the more you circle it. The more you try to fully understand your pain, the longer you carry it. You don't need to gather every broken piece of what's already past. You just need to gently set it down like a heavy bag you no longer need to carry. Amazingly, when you stop interfering, the body and mind recalibrate. Breath deepens. The mind softens. Energy starts to move again, not because you did something big, but because you stopped resisting. This breath right here is the new beginning. You don't need to do anything, just notice. This moment is your chance to quietly release what's been weighing you down. Not everything that hurts needs fixing. Some wounds just need you to stop trying. They will pass like water around the rock when you allow yourself to be still. When you no longer need to fix, analyze, or explain, you'll see a space open inside. That space has no noise, no heaviness, no urgency. It is simply still. And in that stillness is not avoidance. It is the deepest cleansing from within. We live in an era where everything happens at the speed of a click. A message hasn't finished typing, and someone's already replied. A misunderstanding hasn't been clarified, and the argument has already erupted. A hurt feeling has just surfaced, and reactions, defenses, and explanations rush out like wildfire. In this world, those who choose to sit still, not to speak right away, not to retaliate immediately, not to rush into confrontation, are often misunderstood. They are seen as weak, lacking courage, or avoiding problems. But in truth, that stillness is not surrender. Stillness is a profoundly healing choice. Stillness is when you no longer feel the need to brace yourself. It's when both body and mind recognize, now I am in a safe space. I don't need to fight anymore. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha taught, a still mind is a clear mind. When the mind is turbulent, wisdom cannot arise. When you're still reacting, you cannot see things clearly. You only see what you want to see, hear what you want to hear, and speak to defend what you want to protect. Stillness does not mean doing nothing. Stillness is stepping back to see more clearly. It's not that you're afraid to react. You've simply cultivated enough mindfulness to know not everything is worthy of a reaction. Modern neuroscientists confirm this. They call it the rest and repair mode. When you stop reacting, your nervous system exits fight or flight. Your heart rate slows down. Your breath deepens. Your immune system begins to restore itself. Your brain disengages from emotional reactivity and reconnects with the higher centers of awareness, which means when you choose not to react, you begin to heal. You stop fighting. You start making peace with yourself. And in that pause, you reclaim ownership of your life. Many people misunderstand stillness. They think it means avoidance, that it's shirking responsibility, that silence is a way of escaping conflict. But in truth, you can be still and be fully present. Stillness is not silence in the sense of passivity. Stillness is not letting your emotions run the show. It's being completely present with yourself. You clearly see what's happening without being pulled into it. Stillness is when you no longer need to argue, no longer need to win or lose, no longer need to explain everything. And in that space, you create room for the right action. An action not twisted by anger, not clouded by pride, not stretched by pressure to be better. You're no longer a puppet of emotions. You become the master of your own mind, someone who knows how to respond at the right time, in the right way. Stillness is not a destination. Stillness is the condition for clarity. And only when you see clearly can you know whether to take a step forward or pause. That's not weakness. That's the maturity of a mind that understands itself. One meditation student shared that during a heated argument, he felt the urge to say everything boiling inside every rebuttal, every grievance. But in that moment, a quiet voice inside whispered, "Just breathe." So he stopped. He didn't speak, didn't send a message, didn't act. He just sat and breathed. A few minutes later, something strange happened. The other person calmed down too. No one won. No one lost. But most importantly, no one got hurt. And for the first time, he felt he was in control, not being dragged around by emotion. When someone upsets you, the best thing you can do is not react. Pause. Place a hand on your belly. Breathe in, know that you are breathing in. Breathe out, know that you are breathing out. Then whisper silently, "I don't need to respond right now. I will act after the mind has settled." It sounds simple, but it's one of the deepest acts of mindfulness, because in the moment you stop reacting, you step out of ignorance where emotions control you, and you enter the space of wisdom where you can truly see what's happening. In the Noble Eightfold Path, the Buddha spoke of right speech words spoken at the right time with the right intention in the right way. A true statement spoken at the wrong time can hurt. A truth spoken in anger can become a knife wounding the very relationship you're trying to protect. Stillness gives you time to transform reactive energy into wisdom. Stillness helps you hold your words until they become flowers, not arrows. You don't meditate to escape life. You don't practice stillness to disconnect from the world. You practice stillness to be more fully present in it, with every noise, every impact, every wave of emotion. Meditation doesn't remove you from the flow of life. It teaches you how to stand firmly in that flow without being swept away. Your mind is like water. When it is agitated, the reflection is distorted, and the moon cannot appear clearly. But when the water is still, the moon shows itself in full. So too with the mind. Only when reaction stops can the inner clarity reveal itself. So if you truly want to understand others, be still. If you want to hear the truth in your own heart, be still. And if you want to stop the cycles of suffering that repeat again and again, be still. You don't have to run from your emotions. You don't have to suppress them. Just pause. Take one deep breath. Allow yourself not to react in that moment, and you've already stepped outside your old patterns. You've opened the door to freedom. Neuroscientists call it the switching moment. When you pause, the brain shifts from reactive mode to cognitive mode. The nervous system calms down, breath deepens, and the body stops fighting and begins to heal. Just one mindful breath, and it can change the direction of a conversation, a day, even a relationship. That stillness is not passive. It is the strength of someone who knows exactly what they're doing. A still person is not indifferent. They're just not willing to let unworthy things wound their heart. And when you learn to breathe instead of react, you begin to realize peace doesn't come from everything being quiet on the outside. Peace comes when you're no longer pulled apart on the inside. Just one moment of pausing, one deep breath, one decision not to react immediately. And in that moment, you don't just clear a single burst of anger, you clear the whole path for your mind to return to its true moonlit clarity. And then you begin to see one thing more clearly. It wasn't the event that prolonged the pain. It was your reaction, your attachment, your storytelling, your holding on. The pain happened. It's done. But holding on to it is a choice. Your life is not shaped by what happened, but by how you hold what happened in your mind. There are those who have lost everything and yet still smile. And there are those who carry resentment for half a lifetime over one careless comment. The difference isn't in the event, but in how tightly we cling to it. Pain is real, but prolonged suffering is a product of the mind. It is the result of repetition, of replaying the same story in your head like a loop that never ends. The Buddha did not deny suffering. He acknowledged it clearly. Suffering is a part of life. But he also pointed to a path out of suffering. And it begins with something simple: releasing the second arrow. You can't avoid the first arrow, the loss, the betrayal, the misunderstanding, or the wound. But you can learn not to shoot the second arrow into yourself. The second arrow is your reaction. It's when you keep carrying the old story, reliving the old emotion, rebuilding the same scene again and again in your mind. And the more you repeat it, the deeper the pain feels. Not because the pain grows stronger, but because you've started to identify with it. When you hold on to a story long enough, the brain starts to believe it's still happening. It doesn't distinguish memory from present moment. Each time you recall it with full emotion, your body reacts as if it's happening now. Your breath shortens, muscles tense, heart races, your nervous system goes on alert. And so a wound long past lives again right inside your body. Many people define themselves by their pain. They don't say I was hurt. They say I'm someone who was betrayed. I'm someone who always gets left behind. I'm someone who never gets heard. And when that story is repeated long enough, they believe it's who they are. They forget I is the one seeing the pain, not the pain itself. In the teaching of Anatta no self, the Buddha said clearly, there is no I, no mine, no fixed self. You went through it, but you are not it. You are the one who can observe, who can breathe deeply, who can set the past down gently without denying it, just not feeding it with more attention. When you're hurt, the brain stores that moment as a survival event. It holds on to it for protection to warn you. But if you keep retelling it with anger, self-pity, or resentment, you keep that wound alive like a ghost. Healing doesn't come from forcing yourself to forget. Healing comes from ending the habit of replaying the story, especially in moments of stress. Instead of thinking, why did this happen to me? Try acknowledging I'm holding this in my heart. Seeing it is the first step to letting go. When the pain rises again, you don't need to analyze it. Just return to your breath. Gently, steadily. Know you're breathing in. Know you're breathing out. Feel the subtle movement of your chest, the sound of the wind, the sensation in your feet. Anything that brings your mind back to the present. Remember, you don't need to defeat the memory. You don't need to defeat the pain. You just need to stop feeding it. Don't give it fuel. Don't speak to it every night before sleep. Don't rebuild the scene. Don't recite the lines. And most importantly, don't attach your identity to the role you played in that story. It's like a burned house. You can't erase the burn marks on the wall, but you can clean it, rebuild, and choose not to live in the darkest corner anymore. Here are 4 things you can practice each day. 1. Acknowledge. You might still be holding something. Don't deny it. Don't rationalize. Just name it. I'm carrying this with me. 2. Stop replaying. Every time your mind starts the old story, pause. Especially when you're tired, stressed, or anxious, that is not the time to recall the past. 3. Return to now. Know where you are, what you're doing. Feel the air, the scent, the temperature. Pull your mind off the screen of memory and into the present moment. 4. Choose something else. Instead of feeding the pain, feed something kind, soft music. A slow walk, 5 minutes of meditation, or simply watching a falling leaf. You don't need to overcome the past in some grand way. You just need to stop letting it walk beside you every day. That's a gentle yet powerful kind of resolve. With each mindful breath, you are writing a new story. One that doesn't begin with "I once was," but instead says, "Right now I'm breathing, I'm alive, and I'm choosing lightness." And that alone is how you step out of the old role. Not by fighting it, but by gently releasing it. There was once a man who came to a Zen master with a heart full of wounds. He said, "I've been deeply hurt. How do I heal?" The master didn't reply right away. He simply handed the man a glass with cloudy water, then said gently, "If you keep stirring it, it will never clear. But if you set it down and leave it still, the water will settle on its own." No more words were needed. The lesson had arrived. Sometimes we don't need more information, not more reasons, not more analysis. We just need to stop stirring the same old questions. Why? Whose fault? What should have happened? Was it worth it? The mind, when it finally stops, knows how to settle. Not because you did something special, but because you stopped doing too much. Mindfulness doesn't come to change the past. It doesn't fix what already happened. Mindfulness just gently places a hand on your shoulder and says, "Right now you are breathing," and that is enough to begin again. Each time an old memory returns, you can practice 3 simple things. Recognize this is a memory, not a reality repeating itself, just an image from the past passing through the mind. Don't identify. You don't need to believe it's happening again. Just see clearly without stepping back into the role. Return to now. Right now I'm safe. I'm breathing. Everything is different now. In Buddhist teaching, mindfulness is called the gatekeeper of freedom. It doesn't fight with the past. It doesn't try to erase what hurt. It simply keeps your mind from being dragged back from reliving arrow 2, arrow 3, arrow 10, all of which you've unknowingly shot into yourself. You don't need to pretend to forget. You don't need to rush to forgive. You don't need to act strong. You just need to stop hurting yourself by holding on to what no longer lives. Self-compassion is not indulgence. It is the maturity of the heart. It's when you allow yourself to let go without needing a reason. Breathe without having to explain. Choose softness because you know it's time. Not everyone will understand the pain you've carried. Not everyone will say sorry. Not everyone will be accountable. And yes, not everything will be fair. But you don't need all of that to begin again. You let go not because they deserve it, but because you no longer want to imprison yourself in what's already over. You let go not because you're fully healed, but because you're simply tired. Tired of holding. Tired of retelling. Tired of reliving. And in a moment of mindfulness, you realize holding on won't help anymore. The memory is real. The pain was real. But the ongoing suffering is a choice. And freedom always begins with a quiet decision: I don't need to carry this anymore. When you truly see that you are no longer a victim of your past, you are no longer the pain itself. You are the sky vast, still untouched by the waves. The waves may rise, they may crash unexpectedly, but they are never permanent. They come and they go. As long as you don't cling to the waves, you are not the waves. You are the space that sees the waves. And that is where you rediscover your inner freedom, not by battling the pain, but by seeing it and choosing not to hold it anymore. If you still feel unready, that's okay too. Just pause for a few moments each day. Breathe a little slower. Look at your memories with a slightly softer gaze. Whisper, "That's over now. I don't need to live it again." Repeat this, and you'll feel your heart settle little by little. You don't have to be okay right away, but you can stop stirring. Put the glass of your inner world down and leave it still. And once you see clearly, suffering doesn't come from the event, but from how you cling to it. You'll also begin to notice something else. Those harsh words, the self-blame, the cruel phrases others once threw at you, are still echoing in the body. Not just the mind, your body remembers too. Your breath stays shallow. Your shoulders tense. Your stomach tightens at the mere mention of a name. We often think that a hurtful word, once spoken and heard, will pass like a breeze brushing against the ear. But the truth is different. Your body does not forget. The mind may reason it away, but the body remembers. A harsh insult can make your shoulders tense unconsciously. A cruel criticism can tighten your chest for reasons you can't explain. An unexpected rejection can leave your throat choked up. And if you pay close attention, there are still sensations lingering in your body every time you're in a similar situation, not because of memory alone, but because your body is remembering. In the Noble Eightfold Path, the Buddha taught about right speech, rooted in right view, compassion, and wisdom. Why? Because speech creates karma. Not just karma in the outer world, in relationships, but also karma within the heart, the body, and every cell. A harsh word plants a seed of anger. A critical word plants a seed of shame. A toxic word plants a seed of illness. And the most dangerous part, we often don't even realize those words are still living inside us. Modern neuroscience confirms this. Negative words, especially those repeated, often activate specific regions in the brain, leading to stress disorders, depression, and sleep disruptions. When you hear or repeat phrases like, "I'm useless," "I'm not good enough," "I always mess things up," your body doesn't distinguish whether they're true. Your body believes, and then it reacts as if you're in real danger. Heart races, stomach clenches, immune system weakens, sleep is restless. You feel anxious even in a quiet room. It all begins with a single sentence. Ask yourself, do you remember a sentence that kept you up all night? Do you still recall the feeling in your gut when someone scolded you? Do you remember the eyes that came with that sentence? It didn't pass. It settled like sediment at the bottom of a glass. And every time someone touches the same spot, that sediment stirs again. Not from memory, but from the body. So the first thing you need to do isn't to immediately think positive. It's to stop. Don't react. Don't respond. Don't add another word of self-blame. Don't pour more fuel on a flame already lit. Just sit still. Place a hand on your chest or belly. Breathe slowly. Observe what's happening inside. You might feel a sting in your chest, a tightness in your shoulders, a tension in your neck. Don't rush to get rid of it. Don't try to explain it. Let what is tight breathe. Let what is clenched soften. Let what is stuck be heard. This is an act of compassion, not for others, for yourself. Self-compassion is when you stop letting old words control you. When you stop replaying old stories through the voice in your head. When you're mindful enough to say, "That sentence has passed, but I'm still here, and I can choose a different response." That is when mindfulness arrives, not as a technique, but as a friend whispering, no need to resist, no need to replay. Just breathe and be still, because you can't control what others say, but you can choose what to nurture inside your body and mind. You can't erase old memories, but you can stop feeding them the energy to keep hurting you. And every time you choose to pause, to breathe slowly, to observe your body instead of thinking you're taking a powerful step toward healing, you don't have to change the world. You just need to sit with yourself. Peace doesn't always come from a compliment. Sometimes it comes from one full breath after years of holding it back. In the meditation tradition, there is a practice called mindfulness of the body. Instead of just sitting still, you return to each part of your body like visiting a land holding unspoken messages. No judgment, no analysis, just silent witnessing and breathing with the body. You might be surprised by what you discover. A shoulder that always feels heavy when you think of someone who exhausts you. A chest that aches when you remember a painful word from years ago. A throat that dries up when you're about to speak honestly, but swallow it back unsure anyone will listen. Each area of your body, like a biological recorder, quietly stores words, emotions, reactions, and memories. You don't need reminders. You don't need intention. But when the trigger comes, you feel it. Your body remembers, and only when you're quiet, fully present to listen to your body like an old friend whispering in the dark, can those sensations finally dissolve naturally. You can't erase what others have said. You can't make the world speak gently. But you can change the energy you're holding with presence, with breath, with kind words to yourself. Every time you return to your body, not to analyze, not to reason, but simply to be present, you give yourself the chance to unhook an old chain. Start with small things. Say something kind to yourself. I'm listening to myself. I deserve gentleness. Instead of letting old words repeat, stop them with one exhale. I don't need to believe that anymore. Instead of forcing yourself to understand your pain, place a hand on your chest and say, just breathe. Nothing else is needed now. You don't need to be done with your anger to relax. You don't need to understand your pain fully to rest. You only need to let your body rest after all these years of holding it in. Right speech as taught by the Buddha isn't only about words to others. It's also the sentences you whisper to yourself every day. Are you still calling yourself by heavy names? Are you still speaking sentences that tighten your body? Are you still replaying a story that steals your breath each time? Self-compassion doesn't begin with lofty ideas. It starts when you stop blaming yourself for hurting too long. Don't shame your body for holding on. Don't shame your heart for not letting go quickly. Don't force yourself to be someone else. Just hold the feeling like a trembling child and say, maybe I can't forgive yet, but I can breathe with this pain. Toxic words, when stored too long, can become illness. Self-blame, when repeated, can sever your connection to yourself. But compassionate words, when lit consistently, can soothe wounds you thought were beyond saving. Begin again today. Say something kind to yourself. Don't speak a hurtful phrase even inside your head. Bring awareness to where your body is tight and breathe into it. When you return, you'll realize your body doesn't need you to understand. It just needs you to stay. Every area of tension in your body is an unopened letter. Every knot, sigh, or racing heartbeat is a message. Something inside still needs to be heard, and you don't need to do anything grand. Just pause, be silent, breathe, and look into your body as if caring for a friend who has just weathered a storm. You don't need to heal it now. You don't need to fix anything. Just cleanse gently with presence, because silence is the most profound form of compassion. Not silence from repression. Silence from listening. Silence from dissolving. Silence that lets the old pain exhale. And as you begin to listen to your body again, and clear out what's been buried deep inside it, you'll realize something else. Not everyone deserves a place deep inside you to plant hurtful words, judgments, or control. Some people, you can smile at them, but you don't need to open the door. Your inner world is sacred, and you have the right to choose who enters and who doesn't. There is a space within you, quiet, unhurried, but it is the deepest and truest part of who you are. A place untouched by the noise of conversations, unmoved by praise or criticism, and without the need to perform. It is not the realm of thoughts, nor is it impulsive emotion. It is the place you return to when you're tired of living to please the world. In meditation traditions, this is called the center of stillness. Not everyone can reach that place, and not everyone deserves to leave an imprint on that sacred part of you, because it is your inner temple, a place that must be protected with mindfulness, with healthy boundaries, and with compassion applied wisely. In the Buddha's teachings, this is why the precepts are not just about morality. They are spiritual armor, a way to protect the purity of your body, speech, and mind. To uphold the precepts is not merely to avoid doing wrong. It is to learn what is worthy of being allowed into your inner world. A harsh comment can sink directly into your heart if you don't have boundaries. A look of disdain can leave you unsettled for days if you don't know who you are. Precepts in their deeper meaning are a spiritual fence. They are a conscious act of selection. I choose to let this in, that I kindly invite it to leave. Modern psychology calls this emotional boundaries. When you lack them, you become a landing zone for other people's emotions. Someone speaks to you with tension and you feel tight. Someone carries negativity and you feel dragged down. You no longer know what feelings are yours and what energies belong to others. And in that confusion, you exhaust yourself without knowing why. Many people live in fatigue, not because they are weak, but because their doors are open too wide. Everything comes in. All the noise, all the chatter, and the mind, which is meant to be a pure space, becomes cluttered with echoes and chaos. Does this sound like you? Do you sometimes feel tired, even though you've done nothing all day? Have you ever met someone just once and yet felt drained for hours afterward? Have you ever felt restless without knowing what you're thinking? If so, you might be lacking boundaries, allowing too much that doesn't deserve a place in your heart. So what can you do? 1. Notice what drains you even when you're not physically active. Often it's the small conversations that consume the most energy. 2. Ask yourself what you've been exposed to. What did you hear? Who did you speak with? What thoughts filled your afternoon? 3. Learn to say no to unnecessary interactions. A toxic call, a gossip-filled chat, you can step back. No attending. No reacting. No opening the door. 4. Take time daily to turn inward. Turn off your phone. No podcasts. No activity. Just sit, breathe, and listen to your own mind again. When you are quiet, you begin to see clearly who is present in your heart. You'll know what to keep and what to kindly let go. Like a temple keeper who knows who is welcome to enter and who must remain outside. Do not feel guilty for needing space. Do not believe you are selfish for protecting your inner life. In truth, it's only when you understand your limits that you can truly love, because love doesn't begin with pleasing others. It begins with awareness. Who am I? What am I holding? And have I kept my inner temple clean? A still mind is your most honest self. And when you live from that place, your words become gentler, your presence becomes kinder, and your spirit becomes more grounded. You don't have to fight life. You only need to choose what deserves to pass through your sacred inner space. A Zen master once told his disciple, "You must learn to be the gatekeeper, because your mind is a temple. If anyone can walk in freely, then it is no longer a temple." That line may sound simple, but it holds a profound truth. An open heart does not mean an unguarded one. You can be compassionate and still have boundaries. You can love and still know when to close. You can be forgiving without letting others trespass your soul at any time they wish. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha taught, "The mind is the forerunner of all things. It is the master. It creates." This means the mind is the root of everything. If you allow others to plant seeds of comparison, judgment, envy, or blame in your mind, you are turning your garden of merit into barren land where only weeds can grow. And when weeds take over, flowers struggle to survive. A true practitioner, whether in daily life or in a monastery, must learn the art of guarding the mind like a gardener guards the soil. Don't let garbage in. Don't let poison in. Don't let anyone walk through that land and leave it scratched or wounded. Not because you're selfish, but because you understand a garden left uncared for will eventually fall into ruin. You can begin practicing this today with very simple but powerful questions. When someone talks to you, ask, "Do I feel lighter afterward?" After leaving a conversation, ask, "Did my heart expand or shrink?" When reading, watching, or listening to something, ask, "Is my body relaxing or tensing up?" If the answer leans toward heaviness, tightness, or irritation, that's your sign to close the gate. Not everything that helps you know more helps you grow more. Some conversations only feed confusion. Some words disguised as sharing are just someone offloading their negativity onto you. And if you don't know how to stop it, you slowly become their emotional trash can without even realizing it. Guarding your heart doesn't make you cold. It makes you conscious. It protects the sacred space within you, a place where stillness, sincerity, and clarity are meant to reside. In psychology, this is called an emotional boundary. In Buddhism, it is the precept, the protective fence of body, speech, and mind. No one can practice deeply without precepts. No one can live peacefully without knowing what they're allowing in. Everyone needs a space no one can enter unless invited. A place where you can breathe, feel tired, not perform, not be right or wrong. That space is your sacred inner sanctuary. And when you keep it clean, you begin to see clearly what's real and what's not, who is worthy and who needs to leave. You are no longer pulled by praise or blame, by love or rejection. You live in freedom like a temple keeper in the middle of a noisy street, still hearing the noise but never losing your inner silence. Not everyone who walks through your life needs to be welcomed. Not everyone with words, opinions, or emotions deserves a place in your heart. You are not obligated to listen to everything, agree with everyone, or open up to all. Because compassion does not mean letting all energy pass through you like wind. Compassion must walk hand in hand with wisdom. An open heart doesn't mean a loose one. Treat your mind like a temple, not flashy or loud, but with a sacredness worth protecting. And when you feel invaded, drained, or heavy, it's not a sign of weakness. It's a reminder. It's time to close the gate and clean up inside. Practice telling yourself each day, I'm compassionate enough to open the door and wise enough to know when to close it. Because only when you guard the gate of your heart can you truly be free. Only when you know who may enter, who should stay, and who must leave, can you walk through life without losing your inner sanctuary. And then when you know who is worthy of entering your heart, you'll realize something else. The people stories and memories of the past do not get to define who you are today. The past is a place you once walked through. But you are not the road. You are the one still walking free to turn to begin again and to leave behind what no longer fits. We all carry memories fragments that are both beautiful and painful. They arrive with sunny days and long nights. But there is a profound truth that few truly realize. Memories are not you. They are only traces of what once happened, not your true essence, not what defines who you are today. You are not the past. You are the capacity to continue, the capacity to begin again, the capacity to look back without being drowned by it. The Buddha once said, "The mind is like a clear mirror. It can reflect everything, but nothing sticks to it." That means every feeling, every mistake, every wound you've endured can be reflected in your mind, but none of them are you. You may have been angry, but you are not an angry person. You may have failed, but you are not a failure. You may have made mistakes, but you are not a mistake. There is a knowing inside you, the deepest, quietest part of you that remains pure. It's only covered by the dust of memories, and you don't need a new mirror. You just need to clean the one you already have. In psychology, this is known as self-labeling. If you often think, "I'm always abandoned," "I'm not good enough," "I'm full of flaws," your brain will start believing it's true. It will rewire how you see the world, how you choose relationships, jobs, and paths, all to fit that old label. And so without realizing it, you end up living the past even while yearning to change. But the truth is, every label can be removed. No label is permanent. No past has the power to bind you unless you allow it. One of the Buddha's foundational teachings is impermanence. Whatever is born will die. Whatever comes will go. You were once a child, but now you are grown. You were once naive, but now you see deeper. You were once clumsy, but now you've matured. You once suffered, but now you can look back with gratitude. So why do you believe that something from 5 or 10 years ago has the right to define who you are today? Imagine your mind as a room. Inside there are once precious items, old photos, letters, memories, but now they're dusty and faded. They no longer fit who you are. What can you do? Gently pick them up. Smile. Thank them for being there. Then set them down to make room for new light to enter. Your mind is the same. You don't have to fight the past. You don't have to erase the pain. You only need to clear it with mindfulness and gratitude. When you do that, you'll see each memory that once made you cry, now becomes a soft imprint of growth. What once broke you now becomes a step that lifts you higher. Let the past stay where it belongs behind you. Not to forget it, but so it no longer leads your way. Each time a memory arises, say to yourself, "This is just an image. It no longer gets to shape my present, because the present, this moment, is where you truly live. Not where you were hurt, not where you were right or wrong, but where you are breathing, aware that you still have the power to change. Your mind is still a clear mirror. You only need to gently wipe away the dust with awareness. You only need to stop retelling the same old story. And when you do, you'll see your true nature was never damaged. Memory may bring tears, but it's also where you learn to smile again. The past may have tripped you, but it's also where you learn to stand. Each time you put down a piece of memory, the light within you grows a little more. You don't need to be perfect. You only need to clean the mirror so you can see yourself again. A dusty mirror still reflects light. It only takes one gentle touch of awareness to shine again. And just like that, your mind, even if it's been hurt, is always capable of shining again. One day, someone asked a Zen master, "How can I let go of the past when it's become a part of me?" The master didn't answer. He led the man to an old bird cage sitting quietly by the temple's porch. The door was open. Inside, there was nothing. Yet the man stared at it as if still watching a bird that had long flown away. The master softly said, "You are not locked in. You only believe you are." That simple response struck like a temple bell. The past is gone, but our minds remain trapped. Not because the past binds us, but because we haven't stepped out. It's like standing before an open door but being so used to the cage that you forget you can leave. If the past is not recognized, it will keep shaping your present through shadows that feel real. Each time an old memory rises, don't rush to push it away. You don't have to reject or overpower it. Just notice it's here. Don't dive into the details. Don't claim it as me or mine. Breathe slowly and whisper, "This is the past. I am in the present." The breath is your bridge back to now. It connects your wandering mind to the clarity of being here. Zen masters often compare the mind to a mirror. A mirror doesn't lose its light. It just gets dusty. And when you only look at the scratches, you miss the true reflection. Each mindful breath is a gentle wipe of the dust. Each memory released reveals more of your inner light. The truth is, your mind doesn't carry the past. It doesn't need memory to exist. You've just forgotten to clean the mirror long enough that the light faded. Maybe yesterday you were sad. Last year, you were disappointed. 10 years ago, you were deeply hurt. But remember, you are not defined by any of those dates. You are not the events that happened. You are not what others said. You are not the emotions of your past self. You are not time. You are the one awakening right in this very moment. And because you are here now, you have the right to stop replaying the old roles. Let go of the labels others gave you. Refuse to live by yesterday's emotions. You have the right to begin again with this very breath. You don't need to change everything. You don't need to prove anything. You only need to pause and realize the door is open. I can step out. No one else can do it for you. No one can free you from your memories if you still believe you must stay. But if you dare to pause, dare to look, dare to breathe slowly and let go, you'll see the mind doesn't carry the past. Only the habit of staying in it makes you tired, and letting go doesn't mean throwing it all away. Letting go means gently setting down what you've held too tightly. Being grateful for what the memory taught you and moving forward with a smile. Freedom doesn't come from erasing memory. Freedom comes when you no longer confuse yourself with the memory. Many people go through their entire lives carrying a quiet pain that no one sees. Not pain caused by others, but pain caused by themselves. Pain for something they did. Pain for something they couldn't do. Pain for a mistake made with no way to go back and fix it. We live yet carry a thin layer of ash in the heart. No one brings it up, but it still smolders. No one condemns us, yet we become our own harshest judge. Maybe you've felt this way too. Waiting for forgiveness, a gentle look, a voice that says, "It's okay." But you wait and no one comes, because what you truly lack has never been outside of you. What you truly need is forgiveness from within. A release only you can grant yourself. Self-forgiveness is not weakness. Self-forgiveness is the bravest act you can take on your healing journey. It is the turning point when you look at yourself not with judgment, but with understanding and compassion. It's when you realize punishing yourself doesn't make you better. It only causes you to shrink, retreat, and shut down. And the saddest part is you think you're making amends, but in truth you're losing yourself. The Buddha once taught, the ego is subtle. It shows not only in pride, but also hides in inferiority and shame. Self-blame may appear humble, but underneath is an attachment to an ideal image, a perfect self, one that is never allowed to make mistakes. And when you fall short of that image, you turn against yourself. You think, I should have done better. I shouldn't have said that. I don't deserve to be happy. But the truth is, no one was born to be flawless. No soul came into this world with the duty of perfection in every action. You are someone who is learning, not a spotless symbol. Only when you release the need to be better than that can your heart begin to settle. You don't need to prove anything, not even to yourself. You just need to pause and breathe. Modern psychology says the same thing. Prolonged guilt doesn't help you change. It doesn't make you better. It only erodes your self-esteem, leading to depression, emotional dysfunction, and cycles of negativity. Self-blame doesn't lift you up, it convinces you that you're unworthy of moving forward. And so you stop even when the road is still long ahead. In the Heart Sutra, it is written, with no obstruction in the mind, there is no fear. In other words, your mind is no longer disturbed when you stop disturbing yourself. When you no longer whisper inside, I'm wrong, I'm bad, I'm a failure. A new space opens, a space of understanding and forgiveness. And remember, you don't need to forgive the mistake. You need to forgive the part of you that suffered because of the mistake. Compassion isn't just outward, it must also turn inward. Like a mother placing her hand over her child's chest as it trembles from crying, you too can hold yourself with a gentle breath A non-judgmental gaze, a quiet phrase soft enough to calm the wind inside you. Start with the simplest things. You don't need to meditate for hours. You don't need to read 100 books. Just whisper a few words each time self-blame rises. I made a mistake, and I'm learning. I'm not perfect, but I still deserve peace. I don't need to keep hurting. I choose to heal. Each time you replace a harsh thought with a kind one, you remove an arrow from your heart. Each time you stop the cycle of if only what, if I should have, you return to the present moment, the place where you still have breath, the place where you still have the chance to begin again. Self-forgiveness is not pretending nothing happened. It is looking directly at your mistake and understanding I did the best I could with the awareness I had at the time. And today, with more understanding, I'll do better. But I don't need to pay for it with years of silent suffering. You deserve forgiveness. Not because you've corrected every wrong, but because you are finally tired of carrying pain that serves no purpose. And you choose gentleness. You choose to return. You choose to let go. Someone once told me something small yet heartbreaking. He said, I've apologized to many people, but I've never said a single kind word to myself. That sentence, though soft, held an entire lifetime. For years, he lived in effort, trying to please, make up, repay, and say sorry. But never once did he return to hold himself to comfort the one inside him who endured in silence. Until one morning, after some time practicing meditation in a quiet moment, he simply placed his hand over his heart and said, I'm sorry. I've let you suffer alone for too long. No one was there to witness it. No ritual, no temple bell. But the tears came not from pain, but because for the first time he felt seen by himself. Not to be judged, but to be heard. You don't need a grand ceremony to forgive yourself. You don't need chants or incense. You just need one true moment when you stop pretending to be okay, when you stop holding it all together, when you let your natural breath lead, and from there a quiet sentence arises, soft as a drop falling on dry soil. I forgive myself not because I wasn't wrong, but because I don't want to suffer anymore. You can repeat that phrase like a personal mantra. You don't need to shout it. You only need to mean it. Soft enough that your heart can hear. Gentle enough to loosen the shell of ego. Like water repeating itself, not rushing, but eventually calming the storm inside you. You made mistakes because you didn't understand yet. You hurt others because at the time you were hurting too. You acted wrongly because you hadn't yet learned how to pause, but now you're reflecting. You're sitting here learning to breathe, learning to observe emotions, learning to soften bit by bit, and that is more valuable than perfection. Because you've started the journey of returning to yourself. Self-forgiveness is not an excuse. It does not erase consequences. It is the mature act of someone who has stopped causing pain to themselves. It's when you stop attaching old labels, wrong, bad, unworthy, and start replacing them with gentler truths. I am not who I was yesterday. I have the right to set this burden down. I don't need to live inside a sentence I wrote against myself. You can walk out of that dark room, not by running away, but by understanding. You don't need anyone to forgive you first. You don't need anyone to declare you good enough. You only need yourself in one honest moment to look at the deepest wound within and say, I choose not to hold on anymore. I choose lightness. This is not weakness. This is a deep kind of courage. And it is also a spiritual act needing no scriptures, no sermons, no witnesses. Sometimes it's just a moment where you place your hand over your chest, breathe slowly, and whisper, I choose to forgive. That sentence, though brief, may be the very thing your soul has waited a lifetime to hear. In that moment, your heart is chanting a sutra, not with sound, not with drums, but deep enough to reach the bones of memory. And in that moment you are coming home, not to undo the past, but to understand that only by embracing yourself completely, both mistake and effort, can you truly be free. Among all the voices out there from work, family, social media responsibilities, advice, and even unsolicited opinions, have you ever suddenly realized that you can no longer hear yourself? Not that you can't hear sound, but that you can no longer feel the faint, subtle, but deeply true echo of what your heart truly needs, what you truly want, what you would have chosen had you not been pulled away by life. When external noise becomes overwhelming and the inner voice keeps replaying old stories, your intuition has no space to speak. And that's what we often call being stuck. But in truth, it's not the world that's stuck. It's the blockage inside your own mind. In Buddhist teachings, wisdom is not something you cram or accumulate. Wisdom, more accurately insight, is what arises when you see clearly without being clouded by illusion, fear, or reaction. The quieter the mind, the brighter the awareness. The more agitated and restless the mind, the more distorted your perceptions become, and the more likely you are to act out of ignorance. Stillness, therefore, is not about escaping the world. It's not about shutting yourself off from everything. Stillness is about creating a quiet ground where the seed of wisdom can sprout. Like a still lake, you don't need to chase the moon. You just need to let the water be clear and the moon will reflect on its own. Everything becomes most visible when you stop stirring the water. Neuroscientists confirm this too. When the brain is under stress, the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for decision-making, intuition, and rational thinking, gets suppressed. Which means the more anxious you are, the more tense you are, the more you try to think your way through, the more confused you become. The answer doesn't come when you chase it. It comes when you're willing to sit still and relax. A Zen master once said, "You don't need to catch the fish. Just sit still and let the water settle." It sounds like advice for monks, but it's actually a compass for anyone living in an age of too much data and too little depth. You don't have to force understanding. You don't have to pretend to be mindful. You just need to pause and stop reacting. Just observe without analysis. Just breathe without chasing your thoughts. And then at some quiet moment, what you need to understand will arise not loudly, but clearly, like a single drop of water in a silent room. Try this. Each day, take a few minutes not to fix anything, not to check off a task, not to replay old stories, just to breathe. Sit down. Slow your steps. Feel the breath going in and out. Feel the soles of your feet as you walk. Don't wait for something to happen, because in that moment you're allowing nothing at all to create space for insight to emerge. True stillness doesn't come from turning off your phone, shutting your door, or disconnecting from the outside world. Stillness comes when you stop making noise inside. Stop retelling the past. Stop predicting the future. Stop talking to yourself like you're on trial. And start being present, gently, honestly. It's in that space where the deepest part of you begins to speak. Intuition, compassion, unfiltered truth. All of it waits for you in stillness, not loud, not rushed, not assumed, and you'll realize the answer was never out there. It has always been somewhere very close. You just hadn't been still long enough to hear it. Many people come to meditation hoping to find peace. But meditation is not a place to chase comfort. Meditation is where you sit to see clearly, not with your eyes, but with a mind that has settled, not to escape life, but to see its nature clearly, free from noise, free from reaction. The Buddha didn't teach meditation so we could avoid life. He taught it so we could wake up, to see the truth of impermanent suffering and non-self right in the middle of everyday life. Right here, right now, while breathing. When your mind is calm enough, you won't need to ask others for answers all the time. You won't need someone else to validate you, because the answer has long been there. You just couldn't hear it before. When mental chatter fades, wisdom begins to speak, not loudly, not forcibly. It rises like an underground spring, not pushed, but flowing. Try stopping for a moment, right before you reply to a message, while angry, before making a decision when your mind is a mess, before speaking in a conversation where you feel heavy inside. Pause. Just one breath, one step back, one moment of not reacting, then gently ask yourself, what am I truly hearing within me right now? That simple question, when placed in silence, yields a different answer. You'll see more clearly what is true and what is merely a passing wave. Intuition is not some mystical gift only a few possess. It is the natural clarity that arises when you stop judging, stop forcing, stop being swept up by emotions and worries. Intuition appears when you stop trying so hard to think. You don't need more knowledge. You don't need more analysis. You just need less noise, so what's already inside you has room to emerge. Stillness is fertile ground for wisdom to grow, and the seed, you already have it. Everyone does, but not everyone knows how to sit down and listen. Your breath has never spoken, yet it always brings you back to the present. Plants don't argue, but they still grow. The moon says nothing, yet it lights up the darkest nights. And just like that, in stillness there is life. There is wisdom. There is a path. You don't need to create something new. You only need to remember. You already have that moonlight inside. that silence within, that voice soft and constant that you've never quite listened to long enough. When you are truly still, you will hear it, not from anyone else, not from books, not from social media, but from your own knowing which has never once left you. And then you'll understand meditation isn't a technique to find peace. It's a way back home, to see clearly and to live with all the clarity you already carry. And when you are finally still, when your intuition begins to speak, you'll realize a gentle truth. You don't need someone else to pay to admit fault or to understand before you can be at peace, because peace does not depend on them. Peace is your decision. There are people who have hurt you. Actions or even their silence have left deep, invisible cuts within you. Maybe you've tried to let go, but every time those old memories surface, your heart tightens, as if the pain is still happening. Deep down, you may be waiting for something, an apology that never came, remorse they never admitted, or some form of justice to prove that the universe still knows right from wrong. But over time, you begin to realize waiting for justice doesn't heal the wound. It only keeps you stuck in the same place, while others have long moved on. Buddhism teaches something opposite to our instinct. Justice is not a prerequisite for your freedom. You can let go without waiting for them to pay. You can find peace without needing a verdict. Forgiveness is not collusion. It is a declaration that you will no longer let that wrong take up space in your inner life. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha taught hatred does not end through hatred. Only through compassion does hatred end. This doesn't ask you to forget what happened or to accept what was wrong. It reminds you that anger, when nurtured, burns the very place it has kept your heart. You think you are punishing them, but in truth, you are burning inside your own flame. Psychologists call this the emotional loop. The more you retell the story of how someone hurt you, the more you reinforce the identity of being a victim. The more you hope for their punishment, the more attached you are to them. They may have moved on, they may never think of you again, but you stay living in a storm of anger you can't leave. Peace doesn't come from seeing someone face karma. Peace comes when you stop expecting them to bring justice to you. When you practice the mind of release, you're not denying the pain. You're simply choosing not to stir it again. You still remember, but you stop telling the story as part of who you are. You see it as a storm that passed real wet cold, but no longer today's weather. When you sit still and take a deep breath, you might see clearly, that has passed, that person has passed. This anger is still here, but I no longer let it steer me. That's not easy forgiveness. It is the beginning of liberation. Because in the end, forgiveness is not a gift you give to someone else. It is a gift you give yourself when you choose to stop living inside a chapter that has ended. And in the moment you truly put it down without anyone needing to acknowledge it or apologize, you may find something remarkable. Your heart feels light, as if the wound was never a burden, but a deep lesson in your soul's journey. Letting go is not forgetting. It is simply choosing not to carry it another day. And when you learn this, you not only free yourself from the one who hurt you, but from the part of yourself that once believed only justice could bring peace. Someone once came to a Zen master, his voice full of anguish. "I can't forgive them," he said. "They owe me an apology." The master simply smiled, looking into the storm-filled eyes before him, and asked gently, "What if they never reply to that letter? Will you keep writing another, or will you begin rewriting your life?" That question, soft as breath, landed like a stone touching the bottom of a deep well. He went silent, silent as if no one had ever touched that deepest place in him before. Many of us are the same. We drown in unanswered letters of life, unfinished conversations, words that were never explained, apologies never spoken. We stand by the river of memory waiting for a letter that never arrives, while life quietly moves on, and we remain tied to the past by the rope of resentment. But Buddhism teaches clearly, you do not need others to change in order to be free. Justice is not a condition for peace to begin. You can let go, even if they never admit their fault. You can rest, even if the apology never comes. Because forgiveness in the path is not weakness. It is a spiritual act, a conscious decision. You choose not to let the soil of your heart keep growing seeds of hatred. You choose not to water anger each time the story replays. You choose to step out of the loop where memories echo endlessly like voices in a cave. When thinking of the one who hurt you, take a deep breath. You don't need to force forgetting. Just whisper, "I no longer carry this." Repeat it like a mantra. No need to push the letting go. Just breathe. Just watch. Gradually, the rope that once held you will start to fade. Not because they changed, but because you stopped holding on. The Buddha said, "Intention is karma." What they did, what they said, the harm they caused, that belongs to them. Karma will unfold in its own time without needing a guard at the gate. You are not the judge of karma. You are the one who chooses not to create more karma by feeding hatred. When you forgive, you're not doing something noble. You are simply doing what is most healing for your own heart, refusing to let anger take the seat of peace. No one can fix their mistake by making you happy. No one can repay the suffering you endured. Because wounds don't need to be repaid. They need to be seen, understood, and released in the light of mindfulness. When you understand this, you realize forgiveness is not for them. It is for the part of you that is tired of living in pain. You always have a choice. To keep the fire of anger burning to warm your bitterness, or to step out of that room into the light where stillness and ease are waiting. You don't need anyone to do anything for you to be at peace. Peace doesn't come from others. It comes when you stop expecting others to be responsible for your calm. Forgiveness, after all, is the gift you give yourself, because the one who lives in your heart the most is not them. It is you. And you deserve to live in a space where the past no longer knocks, where the old has no power, where there is only the breath in and out, gentle and free. We've walked a long way together. From learning to release anger to learning to listen. From forgiving ourselves to realizing we don't need anyone's permission to be at peace. And if you're here now reading these words, breathing in and out, maybe you are realizing something profound. Each time you let go, you return. Each time you grow quiet, you see clearly. Each breath is a new beginning. So let yourself sit a little longer. No need to understand more. No need to search for answers. Just breathe. Just listen. And know that in this moment you are beginning a very real freedom from within, where no one owes anyone anything, and where all old things are dissolved in the stillness of compassion. After everything we've listened to and reflected upon together, perhaps you've come to realize peace has never depended on someone else. It's not about who apologizes, who acknowledges, or who pays the price for what happened. For you to finally allow yourself to live more lightly. The Buddha taught, no one saves you but yourself, and the path of liberation begins the moment you stop giving others the power to decide how you feel. You've walked through anger, through the wounded landscapes of memory, through the longing to be understood. But then, in each moment of gentle release, you discover when the mind no longer clings, it begins to hear something deeper, the voice of awakened wisdom. We don't have to keep playing old roles in old stories. You are not the pain that once happened. You are the one who breathes, who learns, who walks toward the light on your own path. Everything shared today wasn't meant as a lesson, but as a gentle reminder. You don't need to wait for anything to begin healing. The moment you see clearly is the moment you begin to be free. Thank you for staying with us throughout this journey. If anything in this video gently touched your heart, please stay for a few more breaths. Leave a comment sharing what you felt, so we can listen to one another in a deeper silence. Don't forget to subscribe to the Buddhism Seeds channel. Click like, share this video with those who may need it, and leave your reflections below. Your presence, your response is the energy that helps nourish future content. Wishing you a deep and restful sleep, and when you wake up tomorrow, may you step into this world with a heart that feels much lighter